A very good morning to you, and thank you so very much for joining us. It's Friday. It is the 25th day in the month of July 2024. Welcome to the headline news analysis. I am Adeyemi.
I'm Danielle Shitta-Bey. Thank you for joining us. Good morning to you. Good morning to you, Nicholas.
Good morning.
How are you doing today?
Well, I'm fine.
It's great to have you physically with us today. We've had you virtually the past 2 days. We get to see your facial expressions today as well. Is it?
Thank you.
Yeah, great. All right. The headline news analysis is where you get to debate and comment on any of the news stories that were brought to you at 7, or anyone that you see in the national dailies you'd like to bring up and talk about, as long as it's from a verifiable source. The views to be expressed is not in any way the position of FlowFM 92.7 or the staff therein, but is expressed by in-house analyst Nicholas Uwerunonye this morning.
All right, the number to call to join the conversation is not limited to the studio alone, but also you have a chance to debate and, of course, and pass comment on some of this soon to be discussed national trending headlines. The number is 0807 777 9927 0807 777 9927. A lot of interesting stories to touch on, and let's begin this morning from the story of yesterday that we were talking about the United States pulling out of UNESCO. And then we did ask Nicholas yesterday, what does that say about the Trump administration first? And again, what does that say about the U.S. pulling out of some of these institutions, and what happens to them, those institutions where they have footprints across some of the continents?
Well, like we mentioned briefly yesterday, it's bad news for especially countries like Nigeria, the countries in the Caribbean, the Oceania, where you have a problem of human development. It's going to impact heavily on them, and of course you see countries like China, making issues out of it, and asking for a rethink. But I don't think it's going to happen under Trump. And it's not going to be the first time. That is the first instance where Trump has pulled out of all this unilateral organization. You had that in NATO. He did upbraided NATO. Even threatened, if he hasn't even pulled out, they scaled down their activities. Involvement in NATO operations, considerably, and we see that happening, and it's going to happen. It's going to continue like that, for a while, all through Trump's administration. But you see, I haven't said that it's going to, because when you look at our budget, when you look at most budgets from West Africa, you see that part of their budget package is aids and grants. It forms part of the revenue. So definitely, what we are saying is there's going to be a significant reduction in that particular, overhead, that particular, topic in the budget, in the budget package. So, of course, when we talked about it, this USAID thing, of course, recently you see an upsurge in the issue of AIDS, HIV/AIDS pandemic, You see an upsurge in it. So it's because of the shortfall of that funding not coming in. So I don't know how it's going to be, but definitely this is not the best of time for us. But I think, it offers us a very big, unique opportunity to look inwards and perhaps cut governance in favor of human capital development.
What would you say is the major reason, for President Trump to be pulling out of some of these global institutions? Take, for example, USAID, and because the conversation around restricting the involvement of the United States in NATO activities.
Yeah, well, he did say there was this accusation he made at UN that it's too anti-Semitic. He was very frontal about that. Then, of course, there were other issues too, that he raised, But of course, Trump is a very sentimental person. He's a kind of different kind of package. He's not your average kind of political correct person. He says things the way he feels, and to a very large extent, the conservative bloc in the United States of America are on they are on a roll right now, and they appear to be having an upper hand, considering the many years of political correctness that has done a lot of damage to our sensibilities globally. So it will take a lot of enormous force to get Trump to see things the other way. It's not going to see it the other way. It's going to continue, especially if the initial stance that he has taken has yielded results for him. He will continue on that free fall. It's going to be like that. All
right, before we move to another conversation, I want to ask this. China's criticism of the U.S., the move that he have kind of highlights some sort of competition for influence between these two global powers to me.
Yeah.
What message do you think that China is trying to send through its reaction, and how would this impact their relations? That's a U.S.-China relations.
No, it won't impact any of the relations, but I think China is worried. You see, let me tell you this. You see, look, when they pull out of some of this unilateral organization, they free up a lot of financial obligations. So that financial obligation could be channeled into rebuilding rebuilding America. So that is what China is afraid of. Already, when it comes to military might, of course, the number one country is the U.S. You understand? So freeing up enough resources means that there are other things that they have neglected over years that Trump is going to take up. You understand? So he's always been about America first, America first, America first. So it's going to be in all ramifications. So when you now free up resources, from UNESCO, all those obligations you have for UNESCO, you channel it elsewhere. China does not know where it's going to come, where those things are going to, where those kind of monies are going to go. You understand? So, of course, don't forget that there's this ding dong between Taiwan, China, vis-a-vis United States of America. You understand? It's a very, very big threat to China. So that is, I think that's about. Getting the U.S. involved in UNESCO is a way of trying to bring a third partner that can always talk to U.S. Where Chinese interest is concerned. So things like that should get them worried.
All right, 0807-777-9927 is the number to call to be a part of the conversation this morning. We have a caller. Okay. Lost that call. Please do well to try to connect back. Let's move on to another story. The Miyetti Hala Cattle Breeders Association of Nigeria, the MACBAN, says the continued violence in Plateau State is a result of the injustice faced by Fulani herders. Now, the national secretary of the group, that's Malam Bello Gutomo, stated this in Abuja after their council meeting, and was citing things like climate migration, weak security, and the failure to address attacks on herders as key drivers of this crisis.
That statement is quite unfortunate, really, coming from MACBAN. And, it shows the kind of country we are in, because he talked, on the one hand, he was speaking about migration as a result of a climate change.
Yeah.
So that means that the herders moved into places where they feel there are pastures, regardless of whether there are indigenous or autochthonous people there. You understand? At least that is the initial interpretation, except they have something else they are not saying. Then, of course, when they talk of injustice, I would have loved them to be more specific about some of this injustice they are talking about. You see, cattle rustling, you understand, is as old as, is as old as shepherding itself. Cattle rustling, when you move cattle up and down, of course, you are going to have thieves among the indigenous people, even among the Fulani people themselves. So if you recall that, at some point, the operatives of Boko Haram migrated into cattle rustling. They migrated into cattle rustling, because when it appears as if, there wasn't enough, they weren't getting enough patronage from the insurgency they were doing at that time. They were brought on board by people who have interest in cattle to protect their cattle or even to attack other herds, and get their cattle. Those were some of the things we had over the years, and I believe that there has been a lot of measures, but at every point in time, it has always been MACBAN that has always been the cog in the wheel. I recall that under Goodluck Jonathan, there were talks. There were talks, about compensating them to a tune of 150 billion. And 150 billion naira, and one of the arrowhead of that was Dambazao, the former chief of army staff, was part of the committee. He was then Dambazao. After that one happened in 2016, but before then, there had been talks about that, trying to make them sedentary so that they can capture, cattle rearing into the beef, value chain in the economy at that time. It was part of President Goodluck Jonathan's, is it 7-point agenda that he had about that time, or is it transformation agenda? Yeah. So then there was a carryover. Then of course you have the Ruga issues and things like that. Then currently, as we speak, you have Adedayo Jega, the former INEC chairman, is in charge of this presidential initiative on cattle rearing or something like that. Cattle rearing. You understand? So they have already submitted a position to the president, which has been sent to I believe it has been sent to the Senate. A lot of things have been going on. And I recall too that Jega said that the Ruga was wrongly phrased. It carried a lot of ethnic components. So, and that is one of their own making that kind of statement. Put in charge of helping them to, so saying that that attack in the Plateau State will continue, it really beats me.
All right. I was just going to ask you about the National Secretary, Tumietiala Cattle Breeders Association of Nigeria's comment that says that the Fulani communities have suffered rustling killings without any response from security agencies, leading to reprisal attacks. What's your reaction to that statement? And how do you see, more or less like a careless statement, of course, again, to many Nigerians, how do you think Nigerians will receive this information as to the perception or the way they perceive this particular ethnic group?
Yeah, I think it's a very careless statement. What they are saying is that they are owning up to the attack, that they are responsible for it. So if you say because they have done this, that is why this will be happening. So that means the people who are doing that kind of, And don't forget that it was not only recently that their leader was released from a detention. They went on their own to go and form a militia, a militia in Nasarawa State, which is against the constitution. You see, these are some of the things we keep on saying. That look, Nigerians should be we should be very careful about the measure of responses we give every instances like this. We must be even-handed. You understand? There was a time when a certain chap from the southwest, what's the name of this guy again? Is it Igboho? Sunday Igboho. You understand? Of course, we knew what happened. In fact, recently he pleaded to FG to remove his name from the wanted list. You understand? Then, of course, you have the leader of IPOB still in detention, facing trial. You understand? So, consistently, Magban have been making the same in substance. Those kind of very careless statements. They've been making it repeatedly as without a care in the world. And it says a lot about how things are handled, security-wise.
All right.
When it comes to
how do you think, lastly, Linda, how do you think the security should handle this, information coming from the Magban's national secretary?
Well, on the one hand, you see, what they have to be very careful too, because you see, we must not criminalize free speech. Yes, of course, we know there are limitations to free speech, but I think that there must be a strongly worded response, not necessarily inviting them, but at least from the security agency that, look, yes, you can air your grievances, but not in such a provocative manner. I wouldn't advise that you invite them over for, arrest or things like that. No. That is going overboard. Yeah, people that feel aggrieved have a right, to air their grievances. That, look, this is what you guys have done wrong. Not saying that the attack will continue. No. I think that is way below the belt. Yeah.
0807-777-9927. We have a caller. Hello, good morning.
Hello, good morning, Danielle.
Good morning to you. Mr. Davis.
This is calling from Charles.
Yes, Mr. Davis, please go ahead with your comments.
Good morning, Danielle. Good morning, Mr. Nicholas.
Good morning. Good morning to you.
On the issue of Trump policy, I think people can recollect the King Zarius in the time of Persia. You see, Trump, virus of our era, of our own generation. You see, the United Nations, they are making things difficult for the third world. They are, especially the U.S. Secretary Guterres is an anti-Semitic. And once you're an anti-Semitic, then you are in the black book of Trump and the black book of the conservative elements in the U.S. Even the black book of somebody like me. It is for as long as the UN is going about its anti-Israel policy, then Trump will continue to at least to wield the power of the UN. That's on that side. You see, on the statement from the Magban Secretary, where my boss has said that every individual has the right to hear his own grievances, but it should be made in a way, I think, that it won't at least ignite more crisis. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Davies, for your comment.
Well, anti-Semitism, the thing is that, at some point there was an affirmative, global affirmative on anti-Semitism. But I think in pursuing that, Trump too ought to be very careful, because Jews are not the only people that are being suppressed globally. In fact, as a matter of fact, I think the race that is most suppressed are the black people, especially those in Africa. Because on the one hand, you are talking about what is happening in Sudan. Nobody is talking about the killings that is happening there. So I would have loved a situation where Trump talks about things like that too, because they are humans too, their life matters too. And of course, you have a lot of people, all over the places. You have the Uyghur, in China. These are the Muslim, minority in China who are going through a lot too, So it shouldn't be about just Jews alone,
All right, let's take this comment from Facebook. And this is concerning the news story from yesterday where Senate approved President Tinubu's $21.8 billion loan plan for 2025 to 2026. This comment says, the rate at which government is borrowing huge foreign loans gives us cause for serious concern. When Obasanjo came into power and saw a debt profile, he cried to our overlords for debt forgiveness and obtained it with a discharge note of go and say no more. But even though Obasanjo was not a saint, he left reasonable funds for late President Yar'Adua, his successor. What we have achieved with all the loans borrowed because we are still what have we achieved with all the loans borrowed because we are still witnessing a lot of failures in the economy, security, transparency, and failure to sustain the rule of law? Is coastal highway our priority for now? How have all these borrowings impacted the lives of the masses? I want to remind the rubber stamp Senate that God is still on the throne watching. His meals grind slowly but surely. From Dr. Mrs. Umar Libara.
Well, he said what people have been saying consistently. All this borrowing and things like that. There's nothing wrong with borrowing, like we've said. But
we say that.
We should borrow for things that are priority, things that are going to uplift, things that are going to build the economy. We don't borrow, to pay salaries. You don't borrow to, fund projects that appear to be a white elephant.
Well, let's get back to the news stories that we have this morning. And still in Plateau State, we have the former governorship candidate of APC in Plateau State being appointed as national chairman of the All Progressives Congress. That is Nentawe Yowata, who has pledged to work with party leaders and members to reposition APC and drive it towards national progress. He was speaking at the party's NEC meeting in Abuja, where he was expressing gratitude to President Bola Tinubu and other stakeholders for confidence reposed in him.
Yeah, that's a good one. That is purely a political issue. And, I'm a bit conflicted as to how to go about this because, there was this issue. There is this tendency when we talk about anything that has to do with APC, you understand? And, our listeners tend to not want to understand the position one is coming from. Now, maybe I need to make a little bit of, a prologue here. And I want to kind of talk about what we spoke about yesterday about the issue of Peter Obi. You understand? I recall that one guy from, is it Pipeline, saying that because of my kinsman or something like that, nothing hurts an analyst more than when you say things like that. Because analysis is more about history. Going about looking at background. I tend to be more diachronic. That is, I look at things from where it has started to where we are right now. And to that extent, I went back into history to look at, cases where you have had federal government and ruling party clamping down on opposition. And what I came up with were instances involving Shitta-Bey, Atiku, where there were instances of attempts at deportation that the Supreme Court came down hard on. And in one of those instances, it was one of those things that led to the torpedoing of, our democracy in the 80s. So, when we say things, I intend to preface this so that people understand that, look, when I speak about certain things, it's not about my closeness to one person or the other, but it's about history. So on what we are talking about right now, you see, what is happening in the APC, people should be very, very pay particular attention. What Tinubu is trying to do is to house clean. You only need to look at Yelwata's profile to understand what Tinubu is trying to do. You see, Yelwata has always been about progressive politics. He was part of the people that allowed IDPs to vote. He was part of those people who allowed for this, online. What's this this thing? That is electronic voting. He was part of. In fact, he worked with INEC. So what you are...
I'm being a resident electoral commissioner.
You understand?
2017.
2017. Then apart from that, you see that his choice from all the way from northwest, you're coming to north central. It tells you what, the shape of things that was going to happen. So what we are going to see, is that there's going to be a lot of house cleaning going forward in terms of bringing in credible personality. That is, if his profile is anything to go by. And you see, the thing about Tinubu is this. He doesn't pick you because he just wants a lackey. No, of course, everybody wants a lackey. But he picks you because you have certain capacity that he wants you to bring to bear. You understand? So, more or less, what we are going to be seeing is a firming up of the party structure towards bringing in more credible people, I hope. Then apart from that one, it tells you that the battleground has now shifted to Middle Belt. You understand? Because he is from that place. And of course, they are going to work on how to see they get more people, from more people to move towards the APC ahead of 2027. So it's going to be, for me, I think it's an exciting, for the first time we are having somebody that doesn't come with a baggage. I don't know whether you noticed that.
Yeah, because checking out, the humanitarian minister is also he also was serving as humanitarian minister. And then getting it says a lot again. But how strategic is this appointment? To the APC, and how will it shape the 2027 general elections, knowing fully well, coming from the northwest and then down to the north central this time? How strategic is that?
No, very strategic, politically speaking. It is very, very strategic because you see, again, when you look at what is happening in, the ADC, more and more. You understand? With what the obedience are saying, with what the PDP are saying, more and more what we are saying, and ADC has to shake itself from this. The perception about some growing number of people is that ADC is just about the old guard, wanted to plant their foot into, having the old system continue to run. And they need to assure Nigerians that that is not the case. And this is what Yelwata is going to do. He's going to leverage on more of Yelwata. Okay, Yelwata.
Yelwata is the one in Benue State.
Okay, Yelwata is going to leverage on this. Is it Yelwata?
Yelwata.
Nantawe Yelwata. Okay. So what it's going to do is you are going to see a lot of progressives. People who are more attuned to the more modern trends in politics aligning with him. So more than likely, the way, a friend of mine, a very close friend of mine once told me a long time ago that ahead 2027, you might have obedience working for Tinubu. Yeah, I'm saying it. Go and write it down. Because if you have this level of progressivism, you understand, and with their principle saying that it's not about me being the president, it's about getting the right man to be there to do what is right. Yeah, so because I want to be optimistic about this, because you see, anything that has to do with competence, man, I have a weakness for it.
Well, he was a former gubernatorial candidate.
Yeah, twice.
And he served as a resident electoral commissioner, professor over 22 or 25 years. Wow. I think he's 56 years of age.
Wow, and he's still very young.
Very vibrant.
Very young.
Very vibrant. Again, I'm speaking to, within the APC now. How do you think all the opposition parties sees disappointment?
I think it should throw them into a kind of, they will have to go back to the drawing board. Because going forward, you see, if there is anything that has always been an albatross for APC, it has always been the issue of the quality of people they are paraded. Ganduje. You understand? Of course, there are a lot of issues. The issue of dollar being stuffed into Agbada and the rest of them. You see, there's no way. You see, but now you have something very, very clean. Compare that with what they have in ADC. Yes, there hasn't been any formal complaints about what's the name of David Mark. There is no case of EFCC and things like that. But of course, he's been over the political space for a very long time. So there are baggages.
And of course, coming from his historical background in the military as well.
Military and the rest of them. So that is, you see, now you have two major opposition parties from the Middle Belt. He from Plateau, then Mark from Benue. So that tells you that is where the battleground is going. Then, of course, the other one, Labour Party, of course, right now there are issues there. But you see, this is where it is going now. So I think Tinubu is gradually effecting a house cleaning in APC. So it's a very strategic move. Honestly.
All right. We have a couple of comments on WhatsApp. Let's take them. Good morning, all. I'm Michael from Ilorin. On UNESCO withdrawal, the U.S. State Department spokesperson Tammy Bruce said the withdrawal was linked to UNESCO perceived agenda to advance divisive social and cultural causes. Bruce said in a statement that UNESCO's decision to admit the state of Palestine as a member state is highly problematic, contrary to U.S. policy, and contributed to the proliferation of anti-Israel within the organization. For me, it's just international politics at play. Please, I'd advise FlowFM to protect the interest of both callers and guests. It is wrong for callers to speak to guests rather than the issues. Also, it is wrong for guests to, for example, say you're not in that state, so I don't understand what goes on there. I feel it's also not speaking to the issues. God bless FlowFM.
All right. Well, thank you very much. Like we always state every time we get on the show that let's try and keep the conversation very, very civil.
All right. Another message says, good morning, Salzamaz in the house, and to the listeners and the analyst. For God's own sake, USA trying to protect their babies, Israel. The Mayati Hala Fulani herdsmen just made Nigerians know that they're actually behind some of these attacks. But we had the news back then that made us believe or know that there was foreign involvement in it. But no matter what, there would always be foreign involvement, because where crisis is bred, it's always a playground for foreign bodies and a lucrative business for them as well. The Fulani group is a very delicate group that you don't just go ahead to try to hurt them. They hardly or never, in fact, forgive people. They're literally, in fact, most a part of Nigeria where the few threatened and they act. Politics is politicking, and Tinubu is a well-knowledged politician. Hassan Mohammed Rabi from Alite.
All right, Tim. Because of our time, we need to just round off the conversation. But there's also a very big headline that we need to touch on, if not this time, but we can pick it up on Monday, and that's coming from former governor of Kano State, Rabi Kwakunso, who was saying that, the president is allocating most of Nigeria's budget to the south and neglecting the north. And then again, from his statement, you hear that it says, the north is capable of doing something or hurting the country or the nation. Again, we want to say, how well informed are politicians as to the conversation of one country, one united country?
Let me tell you something. These guys are better informed than you and I. In fact, the three of us put together. But because of particular interest, they tend to say things like this.
But we've heard over time consistently, over time. In fact, if you go back in history, to return to democracy from 1999, we've always heard the neglect of the North, and then we constantly ask the question, well, with all of the resources that goes to the North, even the Peter Obi was speaking about some neglect of the North as well too. Well, one might count that as a political statement, but again, you want to say, with all of the resources that has gone to the North, they appear to have produced more presidents, democratic presidents, and even leadership in Nigeria.
We need to understand what that neglect means. You see, neglect of the North does not mean that, we are talking about the ordinary man on ground, the hoi polloi. They have been neglected. Of course, their elites have a lot to do with it,
All right, well, our time is fast spent. We can pick it up on Monday again, God willing. Join us next week from 8 o'clock to 8:30 on the Headline News Analysis. Thank you for joining us for today. The views expressed is not in any way the position of FlowFM 92.7 or the staff therein, but as expressed by our in-house analyst, Nicholas Uwerunonye. I'm Danielle Shitta-Bey. Thank you for joining us.
And I am Adeyemi. Good morning.
Sunrise to midnight and beyond. One station keeps you locked in. No matter where you are, non-stop vibes, non-stop hits. This is FlowFM 92.7.
Good morning, Ilorin. You know what time it is. Wake up with us and get your day started right.
We've got the hottest headlines, trending topics, and the music you love back to back.
You already know we keep it fun, fresh, and real.